There are secrets out there, guys, performance marketing secrets, and knowing just one or two of them can light up your funnels. Let's go. This is Performance Marketing Insiders. I'm Chris Mechanic. Join me as we go deep into the secrets of the world's elite marketing minds. Performance Marketing Insiders is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the AI-driven performance agency that makes you smarter. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Performance Marketing Insiders. I'm your man, Chris Mechanic, here with a really exciting guest that I'm very intrigued by and very excited to speak with. He's a talented marketer. He's a data science guy. He is an ad tech person, kind of transformed into, performance marketer extraordinaire. He does all types of, I know paid search is his forte, for instance, or primarily, but I'm sure he's into all other stuff. He's right now the director of performance marketing innovation at healthcare.com. Which I was intrigued by that title just because it's like, hey, not just the director of performance, but the director of performance innovation. So I'm super excited to pick your mind about that. He's also kind of a digital nomad in a way, and I've only met a couple digital nomads. So I'm excited to talk about that. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Curtis Correll.
Thanks, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too, dude. I'm excited to have you. So, well, first off, how are you? How you feeling?
Doing well. Doing really well. It's a beautiful day here in Sicily. How are you?
Sicily. Oh man, I can't believe it. So in the pre-call recording, we were talking about this, and we're going to get into it later again, but straight up digital nomad. Like, I've known that a lot of people have been doing that. I've heard that people are up and we've actually had team members that have done that. Like one team member was into sailing or her husband was into sailing, and she just basically was like, hey guys, like I'm going sailing. And I was like, okay, cool.
That's a lot cooler than anything I've done, but
But no, I want to talk about that, but I want to give the people what they want. And you know that we're all about secrets here. We want to know some of your best secrets. So let's start out with that. Having run the show at healthcare.com, having been at agencies previously, having done your own things, I'm sure previously. We didn't get into your background before, but what are some of your biggest secrets to success, or one of your biggest secrets?
Yeah, I really got one big secret that has been kind of the guiding principle of how I've worked for years now. And it's that Google, Facebook, and all of the other ad marketplaces are trying to automate your job away. And that's a good thing.
They're trying to automate your job, and it's a good thing. So that's a counterintuitive statement. Add some color to that for me if you could.
Yeah, so to unpack that, I think it's good for two different reasons, and it depends on where you are in your career. If you've been in digital for a while, that's that you really understand what Google is automating. For instance, Google's my main channel, so I'm probably going to just say Google a lot when I mean all of the search engines, all of the different ad platforms. But Google's really the most advanced. So if you have a lot of experience in Google, if you've been working in paid search for a long time, you've seen it time and again. They've expanded match types. They've expanded their bidding strategies, and all of these different things that we used to have control over, they've taken away. And intuitively, that seems really bad, right? It makes it harder to differentiate yourself. But really, in reality, what you see is if you kind of have been around since before those automations went into place, you understand what they're doing. And so you can understand where they're doing it right, where it wins, and where they're doing it wrong, and kind of exploit some of the seams and the wrinkles in some of their automations, some of their tools. And not just say, oh, target ROAS sounds great, I'm going to turn that on, but actually know how to use it in a really effective way, and know when not to use it, which is often even more important.
So for folks that aren't necessarily Google Ads experts, it used to be that you could just bid on a keyword with an exact match, and Google would just show your ad as promised when the keyword matched exactly. these days, even when you do the exact match syntax, like with the brackets around the keyword, Google takes a lot of latitude over like close variants, right? Like
Ton.
Google, like it's almost impossible to do an exact match. So I think that's what Curtis is referring to is things like that. And that's just one of many, many examples. So that sounds overall, Curtis, like a bad thing, but you said it was kind of a good thing. Like, where's the good in this?
Yeah, so it's complicated. It depends on if you are more experienced or less experienced, and there's good for both camps in here. So most marketing folks fall into one of two categories when it comes to the automations that search engines or marketplaces put into place. They either are blindly accepting of them and they just use whatever the best practices that Google or Facebook or YouTube or whoever recommends. And they get suboptimal performance from that. Decent, not exceptional. Other people have fallen into the camp of really micromanaging every single detail because that used to be the way to win in paid search and Facebook and these different channels. You used to have such granular control that you could just kind of brute force your way into a really successful marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Today, there's so much machine learning augmenting your campaigns that if you just try to do it all off your gut and your muscle, you're going to actually be fighting against Google or fighting against Facebook and getting suboptimal performance.
Yeah.
So
So
if you're
there's
an
a camp of
experience,
like, let Google do it for you. Great. Like, that sounds
right,
great. I'll bid more, Google. Like, you know what you're doing. And there's a camp of like, nope, Google's out there to steal your money. Like, I'm doing everything manually.
right, and more experienced folks tend to fall into that latter camp, while new folks tend to fall into the first camp, right?
Totally.
Uh, so the advantage, if you're an experienced marketer, is do accept some of these automations. Do accept that Google and Facebook and all these companies have the best engineers in the world working to automate your job, and they're going to beat you at some things.
Yeah.
Um, but they don't know the ins and outs of your business. And so you still have to do some things, which is what a lot of newer marketers will fall into is there's this good T ROAS. I'm just going to turn it on and tell Google I want to make $2 for every dollar I put in. It's going to be under optimized. And so if you're new, look for those seams in your data where you can tell Google is doing something it shouldn't because Google doesn't have the business context that you have on your accounts.
That was a keyword right there. Look for the seams in your data where Google's doing something that they shouldn't because they don't have the business context. So what you just described, I think, is a concept that we call broad with guardrails, right? Broad with guardrails. And that applies very much to both Google and Meta, Facebook, Insta, whatever. They're all constantly saying, go broad, go broad, go broad. Let us do it. Let us do it. Let us do it. And they're quietly saying, like, provide us the business context, like funnel your data back to us, basically,
Yeah.
right? But they're not saying it that loudly, though they are kind of like the Google reps and the Meta reps are, but they're super loud with like broad, broad, broad. Let us do it. So we call it broad with guardrails. I figure you know what that means, but I want to know how you go about doing that, or what's your advice to the listeners that are saying like, okay, great, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Google wants us to go broad. My gut's telling me to keep it micro and granular. Like, what do I do?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of things. I think I like the broad with guardrails framework. I think that is probably a term I'm going to start using if you don't mind. But
Sure, yeah.
I think there's a few things. One is Google and Facebook. They have these tools, and these tools are going to do best if you do give it really accurate data. So first and foremost, make sure you create that feedback loop for Google and Facebook. Right? They don't have the business context, but they are really good with data. And so if you're providing them the wrong data, you're going to get garbage in, garbage out. So first and foremost, make sure that doesn't happen.
So let's provide a quick example. Actually, no, keep going.
once you've done that, the important thing is to then start diving into, okay, we know what Google's doing well. We know what Facebook's doing well. Now let's figure out where it's missing. So to give a real world example, right? With healthcare.com, one of our main business lines is selling insurance leads. Naturally, these leads perform better while there are insurance agents sitting at their desk taking calls, right? So basically that heavily indexes towards a more competitive marketplace where we can sell these for more on
during
business
the day.
days during business hours.
Right.
Google doesn't know that there's a cutoff at, call it 6 o'clock most of the year, where a lead might lose 60% of its value.
Mm-hmm.
So to use a very, very concrete and kind of shallow example here, you're going to see likely that Google optimizes across the board, but misses these seam points. And so you'll have a little too high of ROAS at the beginning, during the work hours, and a little too low in the off hours, and Google doesn't know exactly when to cut that off.
That's an amazing example, and that's absolute fire. Like for anybody running a call center or like a phone call based, type of a thing. So basically Google does not know that your hours of operation end at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. That's like the best concrete example ever.
Thank you.
So if you're bidding, like if you're in your campaign and you're saying, hey, we'll pay $100 for a call or whatever you're paying for a call, and you know that the calls during the day are twice as likely to convert into deals as the calls at night, right? Because half the time they don't get picked up or whatever. But Google doesn't know that.
Yeah. And then I'd say there's even a corollary too, if Google doesn't have an incentive to know that. So in the example of healthcare.com, right, we actually, give that feedback. We say how much that call sold for to Google, and it still misses the signal. Why might that be? Maybe it's because their engineers missed that in their algorithm, missed that there can be these seam points. Or maybe it's that they have an incentive to keep the marketplace really competitive, 24 hours a day on all the keywords. So I think there's a mixture of, your business better, and also you have the right incentives. Google does not, Facebook does not.
So what do you
their
do?
goal is to make,
to rectify that situation, I have an idea, but I'm curious about what you would do.
Yeah, it can be different things, and it's tough. I hesitate to prescribe a single solution because Google's changing so much that as soon as you create a best practice, they might
as soon as this is published, it'll be like. But no, what I think, what I was going toward was go back to my granular hat. And I'll just say, okay, Google, I'll clone this campaign and I'll change the hours of operation to my off hours, where I know that the calls are worth 30% less. And then you can do your thing. Like, so basically I'm going to buck your advice of just putting everything into one campaign. In this particular example, this particular use case, like you're not doing me justice. I'm reporting the numbers back to you. Like you're not responding appropriately.
Right.
So therefore I'm going to take action and put my granular hat back on so I know what I'm doing and take the control back from you until you get your game together.
That's exactly right. Or another thing you can do is kind of, sometimes muscle does come in, and you every day at 6 p.m. you change your target ROAS a little bit and tell Google you want to be more profitable than you actually need to be. And it pulls back.
That's a good idea too. That's a really
not a perfect solution, but
so just like choke down the bids, like sort of progressively. Right. And I bet that you would see some correlation, like, directly after hours, there might be some reps still in the office, but like at midnight, like it's, no go. So you could write a script probably to just choke those bids down.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome, dude. This is pretty next level stuff. This is fire content. I think this is a great episode.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It really is. It's cool once you start getting in those seams in your data. The things you find are really kind of crazy. And
tell me some other stories. Like, give me another example.
Yeah, I think anytime there are unique, anytime there's something unique about your business, there's going to be seems like that, right? So for instance, if
What
you
about
have, there's like,
brand search? What about somebody who's like brand is heavily or like brand is heavily searched, brand is heavily conquested? Is that an issue with you guys?
yeah, for sure. I mean, so I've been in a lot of different places where brand is kind of sticky, right? So healthcare.com, our brand is literally our industry. I used to be at creditcards.com. Our brand was literally our industry. So
Right.
people may be conquesting or people may
Oh,
just be
that's like the
sloppy.
hardest brand
It is.
scenario. That's like the
And so
hardest possible brand scenario.
if your brand is something like, if you're like a Credit Karma or something, right? People are not searching Credit Karma who aren't looking for your business.
Right.
It's a little simpler then, right? It's a balance of incrementality and cost. You don't want to overpay for those clicks. You want to keep people who are conquesting off your brand as much as you can. If you're someone like us who has a really, really competitive brand term, it behaves a lot more like non-brand, right? So you want to make sure you're there for those customers, but you don't necessarily want to hold down 100% impression share because
Right.
you're going to end up paying a ton of money for clicks that might just cascade down to your SEO.
Dude, I have a potential gift for you. It might be cool. But we somehow figured out, well, we partnered with a company and we somehow figured out how to write a script which will suppress your brand ads, but only if no competitors are bidding and you're ranking number one organically.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sad.
And you
I
can
wish that would.
you can list like who the competitor, like who the competitors to look for are. Because like
Right.
you might have a competitor from like, DuckDuckGo. Like DuckDuckGo might be buying a 4-cent click
Right.
at midnight in Sicily, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had some freelance clients, for instance, in e-commerce, where that would be super helpful because most of their competitors aren't really that aware of them. They're not getting their terms bid on directly, but occasionally someone will pop up, and being able to kind of whack-a-mole with them, programmatically is great. I've sort of done that with top of page impression share bidding historically, which it's a pretty good strategy. Because if you're doing absolute top, right, you're just saying you always want to be at the top of the page. But if you just bid towards generally the top, it's good for deflecting. Good for deflecting competition because it pushes people's CPCs up in that first position, even though their ad isn't that relevant and makes them more likely to drop out of the space. But something like that combined with a script could be really, really powerful.
Yeah. So we can talk more about that after this if you like. And it's such that you can run it in a test mode so you can see how much, like how many, you call it basically like like you're sort of cannibalizing your organic search in some cases. So there's a way to measure it first, and then if it looks good or if you want to deploy it, you can. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. I'm curious about your story a little bit. I want to get into that, but if you could, because this has been so useful, this idea of like providing that business context for Google, because Google's got amazing AI and amazing, machine learning, and they have unfathomable amounts of data on every single person listening to this call right now. Everything they've ever Google searched, everything they've ever, all of their Gmail, like, can you think, like, everybody knows that Google has a lot of data on you, but when you really think about how much data they actually have on you, it's like, oh my God. Like, I've Googled some embarrassing stuff. Sometimes I even go into incognito to Google, but they have that too, probably,
Yep.
So anyway, it's a ridiculous amount, and that's where really the power comes in. But give us one other example before we shift into just sort of your background, about like providing business context to Google's robots? Because we're really big on that concept. I want to hear how you explain it, or like another example. The day parting thing was brilliant.
Yeah. So a playbook I have run everywhere I have been is directly partnering with data scientists, right? So not if you're in lead gen, for instance, or you're in an affiliate, not all clicks or not all leads are created equal, and there's a lot of value that's recognized kind of after the fact of the sale or after the click, that if you can pull it forward, can provide Google really actionable, data dense insight. So for instance, in the affiliate example, if you are, if there's a week, 2 weeks to your conversion, which has been the case in a lot of places I've worked, sometimes even a month, Google really struggles to know, like, why is that happening? They don't have the business context. And so what we've done is built lead scoring models or click scoring models that calculate the probability that will convert and the likely value if it does, and then pulls that back and associates it to the click, thereby giving Google real-time feedback rather than just kind of randomized month-long tail of data.
Mm-hmm.
And then by doing that, you can feed those same signals to your landing page decisioning, right?
Nice.
Whether how you order products, what you recommend to customers. So that's, I'd say that's probably the most tangible example of really tuning what you give to Google, is quantifying the different business signals you see kind of later on in the customer's lifetime.
Interesting. Yeah. And I've seen tools that kind of promise to do that. And we've done that in some scenarios, which is pretty high volume. You need a lot of volume to be able to do that, to be able to create, but like a predictive model that you can be fairly confident in.
Right. You definitely do. But there's different things you can do in sort of a more medium data environment, right? Like you can make a rule-based model. It may not make sense to have something that's real-time scoring, but you can at least say, hey, we know on our t-shirt shop that the average mobile customer buys, 50% more over the course of their lifetime. So we're going to put a rule in that says mobile conversions are worth 50% more, whatever that ratio is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's great to have a machine learning model that's giving real-time feedback, but a lot of times you can, Pareto principle, 20% of the work, you can create something in a little spreadsheet that'll give you 80% of the impact and attack some of those seams in your data.
Interesting. Yeah. It sounds good in theory, but isn't it? Aren't there so many different variables that could go into it that, like, not all mobile conversions are created equal either, kind of a thing?
Yeah, so, there's tension, right?
But I feel you though. That is a good solution, I think, in a low or medium data scenario, where it's like, because think about, we have a lot of B2B clients where they're only closing 10 deals a month or whatever it is. And so we're, oftentimes below the thresholds of conversions in platform, especially on a campaign basis.
Right.
So I think, but we know that almost all of the useful sessions are going to be between 9 to 5 during business hours and mostly on desktop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty safe to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting in a B2B world because the data is a lot thinner there. It's space with kind of my data science background. It can be it's a space I can struggle in, right? Because you look for that signal and you can sacrifice your density of data as well by over segmenting.
It is true. Yeah, it's a unique challenge, and one that we're very familiar with. And at the end of the day, the 80-20 really applies. Like, it's, you have to use more, I think, overall gut and intuition, and you have to lean much more heavily on user input data. Because in a
Yep.
high volume B2C play where you're like, how'd you hear about us? Open text field. Like you're going to get some crazy, weird
Right.
answers. Like, and it's not thoughtful. But in an enterprise B2B setting, they almost always know exactly where they heard from you and how they heard
Right.
from you.
Yeah.
So it's the
Yeah. There's
user input
other
data mixed with, the quantitative. It's like
there's
you
other
get
shallow
scrappy.
funnel conversions you can pull in, right? Like there's a question of, I don't know what level they are in the company, and if someone answers C level, they're a more likely decision maker and
Yeah.
therefore more valuable. Or there's a
Yeah.
lot of different.
And there's also like a lot of profiling,
Yeah.
like techno profiling, technographics kind of. So like, yeah, if they're from healthcare.com and like based on your email address, I can see you guys have however many thousand employees. And yeah, you can very much do actually what you're talking about. Like you can
Right.
take so all B2B, all enterprise B2Bs do lead scoring in CRM or in their marketing. Like they all have lead scoring.
Right.
You can effectively take that, make it better, of course, based on like the PPC data that you're seeing.
Yep.
Because it doesn't match exactly, and then you can essentially do that on the front end, like on the website and on the earlier funnel conversions, and you can link into Salesforce.com and the different marketing automation. So like it's almost easier in a way. Because like
Right.
in an affiliate, because like you have that back end Salesforce or marketing automation data in real time, you can pump it back to Google.
Yeah, you've got more signal, you've got more breadth of data, if not, or more, I guess, depth of data
The
rather than
signals are like
breadth.
super loud. Like the
Yeah.
signals are like a big gong in the middle of a sales.
Yeah.
Dum,
Yeah.
Whereas in B2C, it's like, okay, the transaction value is like 11% higher today. Like, does that mean
Right.
anything?
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I've always been in the like much bigger data, wider data, really, B2C
Right.
space where you've got, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of clicks, not and thousands of conversions, not kind of the rich data that you have in your B2B space.
Yeah. Yeah. We have clients like that too. But anyway, we're running low on time. I wish I could talk to you for hours and maybe you have some extra time, but talk to me about your background, man. You keep mentioning data science and I see that, but like tell me about the progression of your life and career up until now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in college, wanted to do something analytical, that studied econ, liked the analytical side of that. Saw all my friends going into accounting, investment banking, consulting. I wanted to do something a little different. Wound up at Red Ventures, really cool company, great place to start out. And it's kind of like college round two, kind of like grad school. You're able to just go learn what you want to learn, and I did a lot of testing there. Learned a lot about Google's tech, a lot about our tech, doing paid search there, and was able to kind of tear up a lot of the best practice we had on certain things, on ad testing, on bidding, and really found a love for ad tech and collaborating with data science teams there. From there, I worked a couple different places, in-house and agency, where I, continued to collaborate directly with data science teams and like more and more kind of intimately there. And then, I was actually freelancing for healthcare.com, and came to the conclusion that there was an opportunity for me to come in-house to work on ad tech, data science, and marketing. So at that point, I got to learn Python, learn data science, and actually kind of work hands-on with the data science team, building models and really getting to know the other side of the house that I'd always worked with, so I could better marry those things together. So since then, I kind of work on a variety of different marketing initiatives. Sometimes it's in the automation space, and data modeling. Most recently, it's been in the pharmacy space where we're launching up our own direct-to-consumer pharmacy, and kind of project managing that off the ground as we start that as almost a startup within the company.
I see. Interesting, dude. So when you were at Red Ventures, you were mostly an ad tech person working a lot with the data scientists. What does it mean to you to be an ad tech? Like, to be an ad tech, does that mean like you're just a specialist on the platform, or does that mean you're like a media buyer, or are you like,
Yeah, so my title was a paid search analyst or whatever, something in the paid search realm. Um, and a lot of what we were doing was testing the ad tech they were developing in-house. So, running a lot of A/B tests of Google versus what they had, and at the time, they were actually crushing Google's TROAS algorithm, which is crazy. I'm kind of doubt that's still the case, just with how far it's come in the last, almost decade. But it was a lot of fun. I got to know, what Google was trying to do, what Facebook was trying to do there. And since then, I've been able to kind of skeptically adopt those tools from what I learned.
See.
At
Well,
Red
yeah.
Ventures.
So that informed your opinion a lot. You were like, hey, Google doesn't always know what's best.
Exactly.
So Red, then they were running ads on Google search, just using their own tech to do it and using their own algos to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, so that's where I learned to like maybe not trust Google. But on the flip side, the company, one of the big initiatives I led there, sounds kind of quaint now, but at the time they had everything on even rotation of ads, so they could get a true 50-50 read on every single ad.
Yeah.
And I led like a company-wide initiative to test letting Google rotate our copy and see if it actually was doing better. And it turns out it was. So it was, on one side, I was kind of a Google skeptic, and on the other side, I was actually testing into their best practices on across the company.
Interesting. That's really cool, man. So you were at Red for how long? A couple of years, 2-3 years?
3, maybe 4, I think 3.5, something like that. Yeah.
Nice. And you came from, and what'd you study in school? You studied business or concept?
Economics and languages.
Economics and like
Like
communication
spoken
language?
ones. Yeah, German, Portuguese.
Interesting. So, but you've always been, you're like a quant though, right? Like you're more numbers than words.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's
You've
actually
known that
interesting.
ever since birth. You've known that, or that became a realization after Red.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say ever since birth. I mean, I really like. I guess it's kind of funny that in work I love the data, but in play I'm more of a linguistics guy and love languages. I've dabbled in a bunch of different ones since we've been traveling the world and learned a couple in college, Spanish since then.
Wow. So you're a true left-right brain type of thinker. It's like when you're on the clock, you're numbers, and then as soon as you punch out, you go to words.
I suppose I'm having so many realizations as we talk, Chris.
So they call me Dr. Phil sometimes. It's like, no, man, we're going to wrap up. I want to be sensitive to your time. I've got a few grab bag questions for you. One is like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, travel. I do that as kind of a full-time thing.
We got to talk about that. We got to talk about that just a couple minutes.
Yeah, but I love random sports. Disc golf when I'm in the US. I try to play almost every day. When I'm not, maybe beach volleyball, surfing, scuba diving, stuff like that.
Nice. So you're pretty active, pretty athletic. Talk to us about your nomad lifestyle. I'm super intrigued by this. Like I said, I've heard about it. I've read about it. We've actually had a couple team members that have gone basically just digital nomad style. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have a home base and you're just traveling around. And maybe you do have a home base, but talk to us about how that happened. I guess it was pandemic related, right?
Now it actually predates the pandemic. Back in 2019, I think 2018, my wife went remote, started her own company. And in 2019, I wanted to join her, wanted to, see more of, I guess at the time, just see more of the country, see more of the world.
And you
And
were at healthcare.com at that time.
no, I was at a tax layer back then.
Oh,
Um, and I actually left to start an agency, help start an agency, and we sold our house, and packed our bags, sold all of our stuff, and went to Buenos Aires for a few months. Came back the weekend that all the lockdowns happened, for a wedding, and then we got kind of stuck in the U.S. for a bit. But once things
so you sold all your stuff before that, though?
yeah. So yeah,
So
2019 to early 2020, we were.
what was your plan? Just to
So yeah, I mean, the plan had been Buenos Aires, then I think Mexico City, and then go over to Portugal. Those things didn't happen for an extra year, but yeah, spent 2021 in Mexico, mostly. This year, it's been in Europe, Mexico, kind of all over, and then next year heading back to the U.S., settle down.
I see. Has it caught up with you, the traveling lifestyle a little bit?
A little bit. I mean, I think it's been really good. We've met some great friends on the road, but there's nothing like having a local community and being around friends, family, all that.
Yeah. Where's your home base in the U.S.?
We don't have one, but we have family in Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, Florida, and South Carolina. So one of those
Cool.
places is probably where we'll wind up.
Virginia is near me. Where in Virginia are you guys?
Richmond.
All
My
right.
brother owns a cidery in Richmond. Whereabouts are you?
Nice. I'm in the DC Baltimore area, so Richmond is probably like 3 to 4 hours away.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah,
a
not too
really
bad.
healthy tech community. I mean, Richmond's got a community, but also Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Northern Virginia is kind of like in Northern Virginia, DC, actually, because the government's there.
Right.
And there's a lot of cool innovation there. That's where AOL.com started.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like Webby alumni running around starting companies.
Right.
It's kind of like a little mini Silicon Valley of the East.
That's cool. Yeah.
And New York is quite close too.
Right. Yeah. We did a trip up the East Coast last summer on Amtrak. Amtrak's great. I don't know if you've used it, but
I love Amtrak. I love it.
Great. People always talk about how like you only get good trains in Europe, and I thought Amtrak was great. We went to Boston, DC, New York, Maine.
Oh, that's great, dude.
Yeah,
I
saw
love
so many
Amtrak.
things. It's fantastic. It's just nothing like getting out of the train station in the middle of the city, and you like look up, and it's you're not in a crappy airport having to wait for your Uber to get you into town.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's so easy to get on and off.
Yeah.
And it's like quite spacious. Like most of the seats are kind of like first class seats in an airplane in terms of like the comfort and the like leg space.
Yeah. Yeah, you get there 5 minutes before your train.
And you can go to the cafe and have a drink or have a sandwich.
Yeah. I don't know how we turned this into an Amtrak ad, but cannot recommend it highly enough.
I'm going to call them and be like, hey, you can use this on TikTok. Just give me like 5 cents CPM. Cool, man. Well, this is awesome. Well, let me wrap up here with our grab bag questions. Top 3 books or educational resources.
Ooh, can I say authors instead of books?
Sure, yeah.
You know how some people like whole albums? I feel like that with certain authors works. Cal Newport's probably my favorite author. Definitely my favorite author. Deep work, digital minimalism, just a lot of stuff that really inspired the way I look at my career.
Interesting.
There's a book called Shadow Divers that's just fantastic.
Mhm.
Got to check
Who's
it
that
out.
by? Do you know?
It's by Robert Kurson, but it's about Richie Kohler and John Chatterton, the two of the best scuba divers in the world, who discovered a U-boat off the coast of the U.S. And it kind of like rewrote World War II history. Really, really cool book. Kind of a throwaway, but I did like the 4-Hour Work Week. I don't agree with everything he said, but I think all of his questions are really, really valuable questions. And as long as you come to your own answers, it's a great read.
Nice. Cool. Number 2, what are you investing in? Financially, like where are you on the markets? Like, are you bearish? Are you bullish? Are you buying stocks, crypto, growth stocks? What are you buying?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm boring as boring can be on investing. I try to throw money in the market when it's down, and that's what I've been doing.
Just index funds, basically.
Just index funds, basically. Yeah.
All right, and then finally, what are you most excited about in the future? Whether tech or personal, like what are you jazzed about right now?
Yeah, I'm really excited for the next phase of remote work. I know that's stereotypical for a digital nomad to say, but I think we're just coming out of the pandemic still, and everyone who was forced remote are starting to like it. But I don't think they've seen remote work yet, really. Like before the pandemic, it was great. You go into co-working spaces and there's just so much energy there, but you also can focus like you can't in an office. And once like the childcare situation clears up for people and things get a little more normal, I think remote work's going to really change the world.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Curtis. This has been an awesome episode. I really enjoyed it. If you're listening and you're liking this, if you learned anything or if you laughed at all, please leave us a like or comment, share it with a friend, and get the word out. Curtis, let everybody know where they can learn more about you or healthcare.com.
Yeah, absolutely. So healthcare.com is our site, right? Pharmacy.healthcare.com. If you want to check that out as well, it's new and growing. If you want to get in touch with me, add me on LinkedIn. I'm not active on any other social media platform, which I know is kind of anathema for a digital marketer, but find me on LinkedIn.
I like it. Do one and do it right. That's my philosophy too.
Absolutely.
Cool, brother. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Let's see you again soon, and you have an amazing day.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Chris. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at performancemarketinginsiders.com. This podcast is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the performance agency that makes you smarter, offering AI-driven search, paid social, analytics, and conversion rate optimization for financial services, health, B2B, and SaaS brands that know. Hey guys, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, you can get a performance marketing assessment for free. And this isn't some cookie cutter automated report. It lays out detailed, specific things you can do right now to unlock limitless growth and nirvana level personal satisfaction. To claim your free assessment, just go to performancemarketinginsiders.com/audit and you'll have your customer report within just a few days.